Thank you so much, CK, and thank you, Eckhart, for such an insightful presentation. I actually love it. Sarah, also, both of you have given some prequel to what I am going to talk about and have gone in depth in some of the things I'm going to talk about. So I hope that the audience is ready for a bit of a different perspective. We're going to talk a little more about technology, given that I'm from Dell Technologies, but I'm not going to spend too much time on specific technologies. It's going to be more of the approach and how we're going to look at the future, what's coming from the technology standpoint, and then what are some of the best practices to prepare for that. So my name is Dragana Beara. I'm responsible for emerging technologies messaging and thought leadership as part of our global organization that works with our office of the CTO. Currently, I am very focused on immersive technologies, but in the past, I've spent a lot of time with addressing unified communications, mobility, and just future work in general. So let's begin about addressing what does this digital transformation really mean? Everybody's talking about the fact that we're all going through digital transformation, but that really is a pretty simple term. What it means is that in the past, we used to have IT organizations as a key stakeholder to the technology in the organization. They were the ones who made all the decisions. They're the ones who ran all the systems. They're the ones who basically were in charge of the tech. As time has evolved, and with the emergence of public clouds and the need for organizations to become more efficient or to reach their customers in a new way because of all the competition, we have actually seen the funding for technology move away from IT more into the lines of business. And so with that, we're seeing actually this digitization process where we're literally overlaying our physical world with the digital world. We can actually use IoT to document physical attributes around us and store them in some place so that we can create models of what we have around us and then perhaps experiment with something that's called digital twin these days. Now, this is a general statement that we lead with. We do a lot of thought leadership work from the research standpoint. We have actually published our vision for 2030. Part of that is our future work report. And we're basically saying that technology is profoundly impacting how we live and how we work. And actually, it's impacted probably how we live even more than how we work, because a lot of organizations are taking their time. And to Eckhart's point, actually, productivity hasn't gone up. And I wish that I knew he was going to have that point, because we actually have some research showing that more than 67% of the people that we surveyed are stating that they don't think the technology that's rolled out to them in organizations is easy to adopt. And if people don't adopt technology, then there's really no ROI. There's no increase in productivity. There's really just a waste. So the whole point is that whatever is being done needs to really be done from the point of view that the end user is the center of the project, that their experience is going to radically drive the adoption. And so if they're having a bad experience, they're not going to be able to get there. Now, another thing that's fueling all of this is the data, because the data allows us to know not just what's around us physically, but also now we can actually get an insight into people's behaviors, into people's whereabouts, into their thoughts through applications. So that's another source of data that we're getting. And with that, we have these emerging technologies that we have assessed are going to be some of the key ones for the future of work. Eckhart already mentioned blockchain and secure digital distributed ledgers and the gig economy. Both Sarah and Eckhart mentioned that. That means that with secure distributed ledgers, we can actually structure contracts for any individual anywhere in the world and have them basically perform whatever statement of work we agree to and have the payout system connected to the execution of that statement of work in a digital world, where we can eliminate a whole pile of middlemen. We can bypass a number of things that are currently actually preventing people from tapping into the global talent. And in some of my future slides, this global talent is going to become a really key to specific success of different companies and industries, because if we look at the current school enrollment in some of these science and engineering and math subject degrees, we actually don't have enough people for the amount of jobs that are going to exist. The physical world with the digital image and the digital twin of it, through various data sources that we're gathering, whether they're from applications or IoT. And, we basically do have this big statement that the data is going to be the fuel of all of this change, and the emerging technologies are going to be the vehicle to take us there. And so the specific technologies that we're talking about are security distributed ledgers. The next one is multimodal interfaces. And what that means is basically interfacing with technology in a new way. Over the last 30 years, most of us have become really, really good typists. But being a typist is not in a natural nature of a human being. We just had to all learn how to do this because that was the only way for us to interface with technology. But today, you can talk to your computer, you can blink at your computer, you can make gestures, and the more AI is being integrated into these systems, the more easy and natural interface we can have with our computing systems around us. Now, I mentioned how sensors and IoT are helping us actually capture the physical information around us and convert it to digital. Eckhart talked quite a bit about artificial intelligence, and he will show you how the different areas are being used for different purposes. But there are two really key areas that organizations are looking to leverage artificial intelligence today. One is that business optimization and process optimization is just becoming more efficient. And another one is the customer experience, and really learning as much as we can about our customers and giving them these unexpected, pleasant experiences that are going to hopefully build more loyalty for our brand and what we do. And finally, extended reality and immersive media, that is something that everybody is associated with gaming, but actually it is a field that is going to, especially now post-COVID, get a big boost because we're looking for contactless interactions. And with augmented reality, which is really kind of looking at the environment around you with the digital information overlaid, we have an opportunity to operate at that cross-section of real and digital and make some significant improvements in what earlier Eckhart was talking about when it comes to productivity. So this is just something around specifically on AI and the fact that everyday AI services are going to be essential, but they're invisible. There's really three levels of AI that we're going to see. We are right now working with our chip suppliers, with our designers, to embed artificial intelligence into our technology, into our systems at the chip level, so that the hardware is optimizing the performance of the system and software it's running natively, like without us even trying to get it to be better. Then the next level will be that process improvement and optimization, where system is learning and optimizing on its own. And the next one is going to be really that human-machine interface. And I believe most of you have at some point in time spoken to Siri, Cortana, Alexa, or personal assistant of that kind. And these devices are going to become much more pervasive in our work life as well. And this is where AI native generation concept comes into play, because I personally, I'm also Gen X, and I can say that I'm a huge fan of these personal AI assistants. I told my husband that if Alexa moves into our house, I'm leaving. My kids are much more happy with Series of the world, and that points to the fact that they're probably going to be having a much easier time with some of these new productivity technologies that will require us to work hand in hand with AI. I really don't think that we're going to be competing with AI, and that's actually something that our research is proving as well, and it's documented in our future work paper. We think that most organizations right now are working on collaborative AI, where AI is going to really augment things that we are not as good at. And those are typically repetitive, boring tasks that don't require very much creativity. And again, to Dakar's point is we should work on these human capabilities that are going to be much, much more difficult to work into AI, although at some point in time, if you talk to various futurists, that may happen. So the thing is, like, and that kind of begs to a question of, should we really do something just because we can do it, or do we actually choose what we need to do just to really enhance what our life and work are all about? There's just a quick one about to sort of honor the COVID situation and the change it's created in the way we work. In the past, if you look at the left-hand graph, this is something that actually Dell surveys our customers around the world, because of course we build this personal computing technology and we're trying to optimize it for the various users. So we keep a pretty close eye on how many people work in the office, how many people are remote. And when we say remote, it doesn't mean that they're working from home exclusively. That means that they could be at a coffee shop down the street, they could be in their car, they could be anywhere. The point is that they don't have that office network around them, they don't have that connectivity, and perhaps they don't even have the physical conditions around them. So how do we enhance the experience of somebody who's actually not in that optimal space to be more productive? And before COVID, we had 19% of the global population working in some of those remote modes, while 24% expect to remain permanent after COVID doing that. Sorry, 39% expect to be permanent in the world. In APJ, which is interesting, is a lot of people, when I moved here 5 years ago, have said, oh, well, this is not a culturally conducive place to be remote, people like face-to-face. But actually, our research found that 24% of the population has worked, or work population has worked in some form of remote before COVID. And actually, after COVID, a lot of organizations have realized that they can allow their people some form of remoteness post-COVID, so 55% of the organizations. So we're now seeing a huge uptake in our customer interest in how do they enable their employees to have that remote experience as productively as possible, as securely as possible, because that's another big impact, is that when you go all digital, security becomes really paramount. And so in order to secure some of your content, you're going to be using AI. And what's interesting is in another research paper that we did with ESG, we found that 90% of the organizations feel that they're not staffed to leverage emerging technologies. They don't have enough skill sets, and specifically around AI, 55% of organizations are facing significant AI skill gap. So what does that mean? There's an opportunity actually for bi-directional mentoring in this circumstance, because Generation Z or Z has proven that they're actually very tech savvy, but they're looking for mentorship from their older colleagues around business practices, around career development. And so they're willing in return to offer mentoring in the area of technology, in the area of AI, and just in general advise organizations on how to best make the AI use in their organization friendly to this multi-generational place we're going to. Because actually, the next couple of years, we're going to have the most generationally diverse workforce we've ever had. And when we say generationally, what I mean is people's comfort level with technology and their style of communication. There's an interesting fact that, for example, millennials were very text friendly and really prefer to text, while, for example, Gen Z, like my kids, they prefer FaceTime. They will FaceTime their friends all the time and play together remotely. They'll study face-to-face remotely. So they're much more face-to-face style generation, because the technology that they found when they came along and developed to the point where they can use technology was more human interaction friendly. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, I was talking a little bit about the talent gap and the race for that right talent. And so some of the, again, feedback that we got from our customers when we gave them a survey was that 42% of the employees would quit their job over poor technology. And 82% say that would actually influence their decision whether they're going to take a role. And actually, I know for myself, I joined Dell 3 years ago, and one of the questions that I did ask in my interview was, what are you using for collaboration? What are you using? Are you Google based? Are you Microsoft based? What is the stuff you're doing? Because I know that if I go to a place that's using something that I'm familiar with, I'm going to be much more productive, much more quickly. And then 44% of the workforce thinks that their workplace is not smart enough. What does that mean? Well, it just means that we're not looking only to have a great laptop or to have a great device, but now we're looking for an entire environment to collaborate with us to be productive. And that's one opportunity, I think, that exists for the commercial real estate market that's gotten really negatively affected these days with people deciding to actually perhaps divest out of their expensive central downtown leases, is to actually offer more compelling office spaces where people will come. Maybe they will not be permanent residents in that space, but if somebody, for example, here in Singapore, there's no reason for somebody to be remote all the time because it's such a small geographic area that everybody can make it to the office. And I think there is a number of research done that the best model is this sort of flexible model where people, when they need to collaborate with their colleagues, they have an opportunity to go to an office and have those meetings and have those face-to-face interactions. But when they have to do some of the heads down work or some calls or writing, they should probably have the freedom to choose the place where they do it. And a lot of people may, if they have conditions to do it at home, would do it at home, or some would actually, for example, in places where real estate is not widely available, companies can rent some of those WeWork type spaces that are closer to the residences of their employees and not have to pay such high lease and rents for somebody to go and do their work heads down. So that's really kind of about having an intelligent office that knows who is in there, that understands a meeting room that facilitates perhaps note-taking, that dials in the call right away that needs to be had with some of the virtual members in addition to the physical members. So that's really what we talk about when we talk about smart space. And now just a quick one around this future work report that we produced that talks about these emerging technologies. And we specifically looked at it more from the field of HR and what it's going to do for workers specifically. And we found three key trends. One is that AI definitely has an opportunity to, and not just AI, but like these emerging technologies can help us have a lot more inclusivity and democratization of work, meaning that we can actually source people globally, that we can also use technology to assess not just, what is their background, do they have this experience, but also what is their natural way of performing? How are they interacting? Are they a good cultural fit? Are they going to learn something quickly? Because I think if we look at today, certain jobs that are out there, they have not existed 2 years ago. So finding somebody with this background would be quite challenging. Finding somebody who has a great capability and competency to learn that quickly and master it is probably much more important. And I think that kind of leverage of technology is going to make specific employers much more desirable. So it's going to be a much easier match between the workforce and the talent and the employer. And I think it will definitely also improve the productivity and morale and retention. In addition to that, I think it's important to understand that some of the jobs are quite dangerous. Some of the jobs are also quite difficult to perform. And so providing more of an immersive technology for those people to get like on-the-job training, but not actually be placed in a dangerous situation is actually quite valuable. Offering employees a way to learn through gaming is also very valuable. So all of that is actually giving employees way to master certain skills without suffering, and actually giving them an opportunity to be entertained in the process and get that really positive experience. We did mention that a lot of companies are struggling with AI skill set and AI fluency. So AI fluency is going to become really, really important. And what AI fluency means, it doesn't just mean how well I interact with some kind of a personal assistant, but it also means that if I'm a manager making a decision whether I want to use a specific system or not, and what, understand how that system is going to be trained. And I'll give you one example. For example, Amazon, and this was a very noble goal, wanted to eliminate the human bias from the initial screening of resumes of people who apply to AWS. So they've written an algorithm that was trained based on the profiles of successful early candidates that joined AWS. The problem with that is that most of the early candidates that joined AWS were mostly men. So female resumes by default got eliminated. So having an understanding of data integrity, of the bias that's in data, and making sure that that is not affecting what you're trying to do is really, really key. And that's what really plays into the whole AI fluency aspect. Now, IDC talks about future work in 3 different categories. They talk about a workforce, workspace, and work culture. And all 3 are quite significant. Workforce really has to do about individuals, their productivity, and of course, their ability to collaborate and interact with other, AI helpers at this point in time. And that is really moving more into the virtual and mobile and distributed and diverse. Also, the workforce is going to be augmented. But as I mentioned, I don't think it's going to be a competition. I think it's going to be collaboration. From the workspace standpoint, I already mentioned that people are looking for smart spaces and spaces that are going to adapt to the activity that they're performing. So that really becomes key. And finally, work culture. Work culture, to Sarah's point, is really, really essential in the success of adoption of these technologies and getting really the most out of them. And the best work culture is inclusive and transparent and ethical, as well as collaborative, open, focused on outcomes versus face time. What that means is that until recently, I think one of the reasons that was preventing people from deploying their workforce remotely was the fact that culturally people didn't trust their employees that they're going to work. And now I think COVID has proven that's not really the case. And so how do we retrain the first line management away from looking at their people, if they're in the office, if they're in the office when they show up, and if they're in the office when they leave, when technically whoever is sitting in the office 20 hours a day doesn't really need to work very much, but they're getting this perception they're very, very dedicated to their job. So now we have to reframe the KPIs, we have to reframe the behaviors, and we have to retrain these people. So that's really where work culture comes in. And just quickly, this is an example of how Dell Technologies went about in creating our connected workplace program. We're actually, for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been a top 25 companies in the world people want to work for, and specifically Connected Workplace program was highlighted as the one that is the reason for people who want to join us. And Connected Workplace program has been around for the last 10 years. It's been evolving over time. It's not really a destination. We keep improving it, but it is something that was never done through a single organization. It wasn't done by HR exclusively. It wasn't done by IT exclusively. It was done in concert together between the facilities, who are basically looking after our workspace, IT, people who are looking at our technology and how to enable that worker experience and productivity. And of course, HR, who's looking at our work culture and the processes, and how do we actually ensure that with freedom, we also have the appropriate ways to not just make sure that people are being productive and successful, but also alleviate some of the shortcomings, because a lot of people today now talk about Zoom burnout. and the fact that they're feeling really depleted because they tend to work more when they're at home than when they're in the office. They don't have that human contact. So how do you help your remote organization remain in touch, remain visible, remain connected? Those are all really, really important things to worry about in that future work where technology will surround us and kind of make it all fluent between our life and our work. And finally, again, I mentioned HR and the culture, and we're very, very big on cultivating inclusion. We have a very strong diversity inclusion department. We have, and they're not part of HR, they're actually a separate group. We have, I think, something like 13 different employee resource groups that focus on different topics that employees are really interested in. One of them is Connexus, which is focused on remote employees. So when the COVID hit and we had to literally deploy everybody to be remote, we heavily relied on some of the learnings and intellectual property that was developed by the Connexus employee resource group. Again, this is all based on volunteer participation and people who are interested in this topic. So we managed to have very little negative business impact from the lockdowns around the world, and we were able to keep our global workforce engaged and performing. And so with that, I wanted to thank you for your time and let you know that Dell Technologies, we definitely are technology people. We do provide intrinsic security in our products. We do have methodologies and strategies and best practices and technology for people who want to deploy digital workplace. And finally, we also offer the IT infrastructure to provide the digital innovation and a foundation for you to become a digital company. So thank you for your time. And